I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew to like musical theater week by week and show by show. And today we have an extra special returning guest. Oh, you guys know her. Do I even need to read the multi-hyphenates at this point? We got actress, podcaster, host of Tell Me on a Sunday podcast, and just one of our favorite human beings alive. It's Grace Aki!
Hey, hello. Oh, so lovely to be back at the Cheese.
It really is.
It hasn't been that long this time.
No, it was. There was like a 2-year break, and then we only had a couple month break.
What even happened to me in that 2 years? What was the last show that we covered?
Mr. Saturday Night.
Oh, hell yeah. I was just talking about that. I just saw Billy Crystal at the United Palace Theater where the Tonys were held, and he was doing an introduction with Mark Shaman of When Harry Met Sally fame. And also nominated. But it was great to see him. And he was still talking about Mr. Saturday Night. And he did a 92Y the next night talking about it with Bette Midler. So it's out there, folks. He's still kicking it.
I mean, maybe we'll get a revival.
Mr. Everyday.
Grace, I feel we've talked about this in our last episode, but you do really run the gamut of things we talk about when you come on. It's not like others where, like Brent, you kind of get why we're talking about this with Brent specifically.
Brent has a genre that he likes to talk about.
Yeah, it's usually comedic musicals. With you, it's like there's no connective tissue between any of them, and they're just, it's like our
Grace,
show
please
in a
brand
guest.
yourself. Damn.
No branding is good. That's the
no, that fits us.
No branding is the branding.
This is what happens when you have bipolar 2 disorder. You really can't just go anywhere you want.
Well, we are leaving the Catskills and going to Florence, Italy, because this week we are talking about The Light in the Piazza. Cue the music.
Tiny sweet, and then it grows, and then it fills the air. Who knows what you call it? I don't care. Out of somewhere, I have something I have never had, and sad is happy. That's all I see.
All right, The Light in the Piazza is a musical written by Craig Lucas with music and lyrics by Adam Guettel, based on The Light in the Piazza by Elizabeth Spencer. After 36 previews, the Broadway production opened April 18, 2005 at the Vivian Beaumont Theater in Lincoln Center, where it ran for 504 performances and closed July 2nd, 2006. We're coming up on that anniversary. Look at that. The plot of the show is a North Carolina mother and daughter with a secret visit Florence in the 1950s, where the daughter falls in love with a local young man against the mother's wishes. The musical adaptation of blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, I want to get into this show. This is another, like, I think the trait for this summer, it's going to be the summer of long requested musicals for us. We did Newsies, where we just did the Fantastics, and now comes The Light in the Piazza, one of the most coveted shows ever. And just recently had an encore's performance, and that had a brand new take on the story that I think is interesting and different, but still, the story is the story. Andrew, what did you think of The Light in the Piazza? And for context, you watched the winter pro shot that aired on PBS.
There's a whole lot of extra special features in that as well, so I got all the insight about how they have to run around backstage and whatever. Oh man, I didn't know what to expect, and I guess just right off, I kind of liked it. I think that the music is really good. I love the two languages thing going on. I really like a lot of the stuff with the Italian family. There's the weird. I still don't know how to feel about, and I'm still like thinking about it. So I'm hoping, honestly, this episode will help me think through that.
We can tell you how to feel. Wonderful.
Tell me how to feel. I like that. You know, I appreciate that. But I think overall it was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed it.
And watch it. Grace, what has been your history with Light in the Piazza?
So my first experience with Light in the Piazza was because a voice teacher gave me the vocal selections book, because it was kind of like a perfect, like I was, 18, like ending high school, going into school, college and whatnot. And she recommended me singing Light in the Piazza for my like soprano, like aria moment. And first of all, I crushed. And
Of
then
course.
everyone was like, well, there will never be like an Asian American Clara, so fucking forget it. And now look at them.
Look at him.
But so
Ooh.
yeah, I that was my first experience, was listening to the vocal selections and listening to the cast recording, and it was so beautiful that it's one of the few times where I've just listened to the cast recording and thought, I really love this. I don't wish to know anything else about the show. And so my experience has always been understanding the gorgeous score and the gorgeous music, and not the gorgeous text of the book that it's based on,
Mhm.
or the show itself. I'd never seen a professional production of it until the Encore's production just now with Ruthie Ann Miles. So fascinating turn of events for me the morning of, because can I spoil a bit? Is that okay?
Yes, go for
Yeah,
it.
go ahead.
The morning that I'm going to see The Light in the Piazza, my partner F looks at me and says, "Oh, you're about to go see that musical about the girl that gets kicked in the head by a horse." And I said, "What are you talking about?"
What?
And then they were like, "That's the Horse Girl musical, right?" And I was like, "What?" And they also have never seen it, but they know that very distinct detail. And I was like, "Did you just ruin the entire plot in one sentence of The Light in the Piazza?" And they were like, "Oh no." And I got there and I was like, "Motherfucker." Like as soon as oh, what a reveal. Just moments before, I'd gone 30 years of my life without knowing the plot of this thing, only to have it revealed as I'm walking out the door with tickets in hand. So, yeah, it was ruined, but it was not ruined on stage, because wow, was it so breathtaking.
I mean, I can only imagine.
It's a reveal. I
It-
mean,
Oh, and it happens twice. In Act 1, there's like a moment where the mother, Margaret, identifies this. And then in Act 2, it's almost the exemplary, but served up in a way to make it seem like it's going to be something else. So it's like, just so you know, when Clara was 12, we were out at the stables and her pony kicked her square in the noggin. And then in Act 2, she's like, well, and I'm like, okay, come on. I thought it was going to be like, and the horse, her father. Like, I don't, what's the reveal here the second time? But I guess it's just, that is the big kind of game changer, I guess, that people feel is the point of the plot. Secondary biggest plot point is, the mother's, battle with like being relevant in her marriage and being away from home and like being an immigrant in a place and that type of thing. But it's mainly that horse kick is really getting most of the gravitas there.
I think it's what people remember. Like F
is
saying
it supposed
that.
to be funny?
No,
Not at all.
Is it a joke?
No.
It's such a weird thing though. Like it could have been a lot of stuff, and they decided it had to be the horse kick.
I think it's something that is not a physical, like visual disability that like someone would be able to see. And it kind of gives them, I'm assuming from like a writing perspective of like, on first glance, you would not know that this person has a disability, but like if it's like someone getting knocked out of a place or something like that, like there's a brain trauma situation. She references a scar on her head from a surgery, but doesn't identify what happened or what it was. So that's the only time there's ever kind of like, it kind of gives them free will to cast anyone in this role and not someone who actually deals with a physical disability like on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
I mean, in the original production, it feels much more like they're trying to spoof the Manic Pixie Dream Girl kind of callously. Is that the feeling that anyone else gets, where it's like they're too pent up on the reveal and playing it two ways that they kind of forget like maybe what the messaging of that reveal might be?
It's hard to say.
I don't mean to throw such a loaded question out there, but for me, it feels maybe the casting specifically, like, and there was the whole casting brouhaha that happened with Celia Keaton-Bolger and Kelly O'Hara. And you know about that, Grace, I'm sure probably better than I do, but where Kelly O'Hara was originally cast as Franca, and then when they moved from out of town to Broadway, they kicked Celia Keenan-Bolger out and then replaced her with Kelly O'Hara. And I'm not sure if there was ever a proper explanation of why that happened.
No, but even so, like Stephen Pasquale was playing Fabrizio, and then on Broadway it was Matthew Morrison. So,
I mean, obviously they needed Will Schuester energy. They needed the energy of a white.
Louis Vuitton under her underarm. She said, I can tell you rock, I can tell by your charm. Far as girls, you got a flock. I can tell by your charm and your arm, but I'm looking for the one. Have you seen her?
he was a hot Broadway commodity. I mean, he was not Courtney Collins, but Link Larkin in Hairspray. He did this one. It's just that distinct jawline of Broadway.
Meant to play the Grinch is what I was thinking.
Listen,
The Grinch,
Steve is
Captain Hook.
famously, well, yeah, Matt Morrison for sure. Steve Pasquale is always in the horniest Broadway shows. I've just decided that he is allowed to, and he can and he should. Honestly, it's hot.
He's definitely the horniest Billy Bigelow there ever was.
I mean,
he
just
brings
like Bridges of Madison County alone. Like, name one show where he doesn't bang somebody before Act 2.
Blue's Clues the musical. That he's in the Blue's Clues movie. His wife's in there, so maybe he banged her, but I don't know. But
That's a movie. That's not a real musical.
yeah, I guess. But Stephen Pasquale, he's wonderful. But
he was doing Rescue Me on TV, so that's why he bowed out of the stage production, and then they got Matt Morrison. But yeah, so and they've Clark did it as well for you've got all
Aaron
the
Lazar.
top blonde sopranos of Broadway.
Yeah, but Celia Keenan-Bolger is a very different choice for Clara than Kelly O'Hara. Like,
I agree. I wonder if that was again truly speculation. This is not an insider bit at all, but I wonder if they were leaning more into the like operatic nature of it all versus like Celia's youthful authenticity and energy, and obviously a beautiful voice. So that's not me like saying one thing or the other. But Kelly definitely lends herself more to that kind of like aria sense.
I mean, vocally, yes, I agree with that. But I also feel like Celia Keenan-Bolger, and this is just my opinion of how they're portrayed in stage, she tends to get infantilized a lot on stage, and has that very, like, specifically, like, when she's playing Scout and To Kill a Mockingbird, when she's in Spelling Bee. Like, they really try to amp up her kid features, and maybe they thought that was kind of hurting them when it gets to the twist, and they wanted someone that felt more like,
surprise, she's 28.
Yeah. You know what I mean. I don't know. I find that aspect of the casting interesting, but I want to hear about this new production that you just saw and what changes they made, because there are things I love about it, like the casting, but man, that Broadway version and those sets and that lighting scheme, my God.
You're talking about the City Center Encores. So what's interesting is the casting decision to have Ruthie set the tone. Ruthie Ann Miles was announced, I think, last year. And as soon as they announced her, everybody on Twitter was like, which is kind of like unfortunate that everyone was like, oh, so this is an Asian version of the show.
Ooh.
It's someone just existing in a role does not equate like it being set in a different country. I think that was just so what's great is they cast 2 actors specifically, and then some more of the cast was also multiracial in a sense, but they created that, right? And then also had an Asian male director. And all of a sudden, without making any tweaks to anything, like the book or the score or anything like that, as a person with also an Asian mother named Margaret, also from the South, I started bawling the second that I saw it. You know what I mean? Because I was like, God, they didn't change anything. And yet I am seeing this with like a different perspective. But there could be people here that there's nothing different for them. And that's also great. it did and it didn't. They didn't need to overhaul anything, but still people felt seen. Like they opened, I was at the final dress rehearsal before the weekend opened because you couldn't get tickets. Everybody was going. It was Pride weekend. And I was fortunate to get to get a seat with a friend from Broadway Plus. They tweeted, New York City Center tweeted, if you're Asian American and you have been dying to see the show, please DM us. We'd like to get you into the final dress. And so there was like a sea of Asian American people like sitting like above me. And I look back a couple of times and you just saw like tears. And I'm like, it just doesn't happen where people see themselves like this in a full way. Not where it's just one character that you never thought this character would be this. It was like a mother and daughter combo, which is a thing. And then taking place in a different country where they're like not 100% like they don't know the language, but it's not like a joke that they don't know the language. It's part of the story. Right. It was just really cool. And I thought, this isn't the only time this is going to happen. I think that we can do this for a whole host of shows, and it doesn't change the plot. I mean, it does and it doesn't. It doesn't change the plot, and yet it does like give you a new perspective on like how to see people in the world, that they aren't just like the one monolith. But it was beautiful, and the fact that that cast also was hella talented. It was some of the most gorgeous singing. I mean, like, listen, we've all heard the cast recording, and we've all heard videos of other people singing it. And Kelly O'Hara is fantastic, and Victoria Clark is fantastic, and Renee, like everyone that's ever touched this is a gorgeous singer. You cannot do this show if you're like meh, because then what are you left with? Kicking the head in the plot. I mean, you gotta be a vocalist. And so, you've got this young actor, and now I need to find her name right now because it's escaping me for this moment, who's playing Clara, who was a Jimmy Awards winner.
It's Anna Zavelson?
Yes, Anna. When she started singing The Light in the Piazza, you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, the shivers. I was like, this girl is a star. The world is open to her. I think she's like freshman at Michigan, and of course she is like but she's great, and Ruthie is just so powerful. And seeing that woman, knowing what we know, and for anybody listening, please look into the unfortunate tragedy that has happened to Ruthie Ann Miles and her family and her children. She unfortunately a child in a car accident. She was with her children, and I'm not going to try to paraphrase it because it's a true travesty. And you can look into that, and I don't want to, hurt anyone today with that without a trigger warning. But all this to say, seeing this woman about wanting to protect her daughter in this way, knowing what we know about Ruthie as a human person, and that backstory was both devastating, validating, and one of the most beautiful, true, honest, like actor moments that I've seen in like a long time. And I truly hope, again, she's playing Beggar Woman in Sweeney Todd. Again, a woman who has theoretically lost her child. And, I hope that she is not pigeonholed into these roles, because I know that she's such a dynamic person and performer and should be able to do whatever the hell she wants because she's so talented. But seeing her in this role, it just hits different. So you had multiple things firing on all cylinders. You had Clint Ramos's studio artistic vision and creative input on like the sets and the costumes and all of it tied together. It's a perfect encore show. There's some flaws in the writing of it, which I'm sure we're going to talk to in a second. But if you look at encores and what it's meant to do, which is showcase a work that like probably will not have a Broadway revival anytime soon, if at all, it does the job. I wanted to see a fucking concert. I don't need you to do the whole thing. I just, so that's what it was.
That is such a beautiful summation, and it makes me wish I could see this. I honestly wish it would get recorded in some form. Sometimes encores get albums of some sort. That would be wonderful for this specific one, and I would love to hear it. But I guess we kind of have to unpack the actual show a bit now, which we talk vaguely about the kick in the head plot twist, where we have Clara, who is this appearing free-spirited, kind of goofy, absent-minded girl, and then almost as a gotcha to the audience, it reveals that she was kicked in the head by a pony at her birthday, and since then has developmental disabilities to which her mother thinks is so catastrophic to her having a real life that she's refusing to let her live her life. And it has a strangely eugenics bent to it, especially with both the parents talking about like they can't raise children and things like that. And it feels really kind of iffy and gross and a little ableist, but does that mean the score and visuals and all that aren't pretty and wonderful to hear? I think the twist works and it doesn't for me. Narratively, I'm like, you're being a little clever, but also the cleverness is negating your characterization and really reductive. Maybe that's just my opinion on it.
Can I be even more reductive to what you just said?
You can.
You know when you're talking to somebody and then they tell you like the biggest thing to ever happen to them and you're like, that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh. And it doesn't, and unfortunately, it doesn't take away like that was a really impactful thing to that person.
Yes.
But listening to it as like someone consuming that information, you're kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, that's cool. Like, I accept that about you. And they're like, no, it changed my life. And you're like, oh, we're different. I think that's how that information gets taken in. You're just kind of like, that's an unfortunate thing that happened to you. I still am interested in you as a human. You're more,
but you can't be 26.
But you're more than that. Like, that's okay. Like, shit happens. But it's just like, this is the thing. And it consumes the mother's life. And that's just unfortunate because she just has kind of decided. I don't know. Yeah.
It feels like the whole thing, and this, I guess this is the story, but the mother is like obsessive about the daughter in a weird way where it doesn't even feel warranted because she doesn't act like the daughter doesn't act as though there's anything really wrong. I mean, she's a little bit like absent-minded, I suppose, but I don't know. Are we supposed to take that there is something really actually wrong with the daughter, or is this just we're supposed to see that the mother is kind of projecting this onto her?
I don't think it's like what's the Hulu show that's based on a true story that the mother kind of like makes up an illness for the daughter and then
it's like Munchausen by proxy or something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't think that's what this is. I think it's people treading too lightly and rightfully so, probably, to not offend any one person that actually has like an affliction from some horrible thing that happened to them. I also think that because of that, we as an audience are not given much to adhere to see. Like, and again, it's for kids. We should not be putting that on a person. So I think it's challenging. I think you're kind of screwed either way.
Yeah, because you could be really offensive if you show something real and then are like, these people shouldn't have kids. You know, it's like,
whoa. Film Sing, if you want to know the wrong way to do this.
Yeah, but then this is the other side of that where it's like, well, is there even anything wrong? I can't, like, because I thought the mother was just kind of saying stuff, honestly, and just like projecting it because it's like so subtle.
As far as literary analysis, they're trying to do something like Laura in the Glass Menagerie where the actor has something to play and perform, and that's in it. Like, that's kind of the vibe I think they're trying to do dramaturgically.
Hold your role.
I know. I feel like that's not a coincidence, you know?
Poor Celia out here. Just give her some joy, damn.
That's why I love her in Spelling Bee so much.
I actually think there's a really good aspect of this beyond the kick in the head thing of kind of an immigrant story in a way, even though it's not really. Just like the language barrier aspect of it is really interesting and played really well, and the other family like that's trying to convince, like, I don't know, that whole aspect of it is really well done, and I almost feel like there's a version of this without the kick in the head thing at all that would work just fine.
I don't disagree. Like the romantic barrier between them, which is the language barrier and the cultural barrier and the different feelings is enough. And we strangely have the musical theater breakdown where we kind of have the secondary couple and the B couple and the third couple, where you got the elderly couple, the mother and his father, which is weird. I don't know if it's romantic. Definitely something
I
going
wanted
on
them
there.
to absolutely
Yeah.
bang. Like the
On their
tension,
children's wedding day.
the tension is insane.
I was wondering if they were gonna go there or not. That would have been interesting.
Like I'm I'm imagining an alternate end to Act 2 where you have Clara walking in on her new father-in-law just as she walked in on her at the end of Act 1, and that's how the show ends.
Is it inappropriate to do a double wedding?
Yeah, it'll become weirdly incestual by the end of that night. Yeah, it's
Everything is sexier in Italy. I think that's actually what we're trying to get at. Everything, like hats, they're flying off. The panties, they're coming off. Like it's truly it's the hottest place.
I've never been. I would love to go there and figure out how horny it really is.
It's pretty horny.
I'll take
Ask
your word
Matt
for it.
Morrison.
In his Grinch costume that he has not
He-
left
he-
since 2020.
He will fucking horny it is.
Oh God, Matthew Morrison, you are the worst of us and the best of us. Grace, I don't think you know this story, but it's Emily Clark's story. But she saw a parade in the round there, and which means you can see right across the audience. So she's looking dead at Matthew Morrison, who fell asleep through Act 1, and then Act 2 is on a roll, and he starts like beatboxing along with them during it.
Like it's class Miss.
And it was like right before Glee, like right after this, right before Glee. And now whenever I think of Matt Morrison, that is what I think of, is him beatboxing to Parade, the most beatboxable musical on the planet. Well, how about we compare our opinions to those of big theater critic Ben Brantley when the show first released. Oh my gosh.
He's always here. He's always here.
You know,
Every episode.
Friend of the
You know-
pod, Ben.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
So in the New York Times on April 19, 2005, Ben Brantley wrote, all right, what is this intro? And now this bulletin from the arid planet of Broadway. Rumors have been confirmed that a real human being has materialized in a mainstream musical, an environment that has become increasingly hostile to such life forms.
what the fuck are you talking about, Ben Brantley?
That is the intro. That's where you...
That's a full paragraph.
No, that's good. That's good. Okay, I understand where he's coming from here. This unexpected creature of the species American abroad and named Miss Margaret Johnson appears in The Light in the Piazza. Adam Guettel and Craig Lucas's ambitious and discouragingly unfulfilled new show, which opened last night at the Vivian. Whatever problems there may be with this production, which reaches for the sky with short, if well-shaped arms, Miss Johnson qualifies as a blessing for those in search of signs of intelligent life in the American musical. This whole thing is just shots fired at every other show in 2005.
I mean, what came out? What was big on Broadway in 2005? What else
What
was
was
coming
the
out?
landscape in 2005?
Yeah, Shrek the Musical.
No, that was a few years later.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Man, okay, I'm looking at 2006. Oh yeah, that was not a great year. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Light in the Piazza, Spam-A-Lot, and Spelling Bee.
So Spam-A-Lot won that year.
Yes, strangely.
Well, it was a box office sensation.
I guess, but
It's interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
you're looking at existing IP, and this is somewhat unfamiliar, even though it's based on a book. People feel as though it's really original. The same way, like Sondheim, people would be like, why don't we have original musicals anymore? And I'm like, more than half of Sondheim's work is based on an existing
Something.
IP. You just weren't familiar, so you think he came up with it. Like, it's okay to be something. But
Yes.
yeah, you had a lot of, and we're still dealing with like post 9/11 New York City, where they're wanting so badly to get those tourists. So it's not going to be compared the same as like a body of work versus like other shows that are trying to bring people in. This like the Famalots of it all. Drowsy Chaperone, a comedy. Like, oh no, that wasn't that year. What else was that year?
You have Spelling Bee, which is
Spelling Bee,
a comedy,
but small, intimate.
Yeah, and Piazza, which is probably like the most dramatic out of all of them.
So it's still palatable, but it's Italy, it's arias, it's like, it's yeah.
Oh, that was also the year of Sutton Foster breaking in with the Little Women musical. All right.
Astonishing.
But
keep going.
So Ben Brantley goes on.
Yes.
Do we keep reading?
Yeah, keep reading.
Okay. Most troubling is the characterization of Clara, whose mental development was arrested when she was kicked in the head. You're just spoiling it right here. When she was kicked in the head by a pony when she was 10. Was it 10 or 12? I feel like someone said 12 earlier.
Child.
Clara voices... Ben Brantley spoils the whole fucking thing right in his review. Okay. Clara voices her thoughts in metaphorically dense and sexually resonant songs that seem beyond the reach of a little girl, even one trapped in a woman's body.
I don't know.
So,
I mean,
is he trying to say that the characterization doesn't make that much sense? Because
I think what he's saying incorrect assumption of what the problem is. I think the problem is a disconnect between the book and the songs, which I do understand. Where I think Adam Guettel wrote a little bit of a different characterization for Clara when she's singing versus when she is speaking and acting. Because I feel like she's very consistent in the book. Like, sincerely, I feel like that is a very consistent characterization of her. When we get to, I forget what it's called, like Clara's outburst, Clara's tirade, that is the only time where it's kind of close as far as her singing pieces to like how she speaks and talks.
Really, the whole rest of this is just him praising the actor that played Margaret Johnson, I think.
Victoria Clark?
Yeah.
Yes.
Huge. Especially off of the Titanic fame. I think it's challenging because I never saw the original production. Mm-hmm. And again, I do agree with you. It starts to feel really exhausting when things are being compared to what else is on the street. I noticed this recently with another Broadway review for a show that Once Upon a One More Time, where like the show was also being like, and when you've got this and this, and I'm like, can we just do the piece? Can we just, but it's hard to not think about what else is out there. Like we were literally just talking about, right? So I find it interesting. And also you kind of put in perspective of like the time of it all. Like I'm surprised, but I'm also not. I do agree that like but I also think that's like a story problem and not like the musicals problem. I think that like it all goes back to what we were saying about like the thesis of the thing, of the book, of the existing like work is that like if I were writing this as an original piece, like if Adam and like I forget if they're out here doing their own work, I bet you in the out of town they would have cut that part. You know what I mean? And I think that you could still have a story about two people that just went to Italy and a mom that's like, I'm not ready to let my baby out of the nest. I don't think there's anything wrong with that plot.
It would have even been more powerful just because that's a more relatable situation. Whereas I got kicked in the horse and my mom's really attached.
We've all been to Italy and banged a dude, like all of us. So this is the most relatable
all three of
them.
Well, we're talking about Ben Brantley a lot, but I think we got to compare our opinions to those of true theater critics or true critics altogether. And that is the brilliant minds over at letterboxd.com. It's time for the Letterboxd game. 1 star, 5 star.
There is a movie for this, apparently. So
there is. No one saw it on Letterboxd.
I just
sincerely
dropped it in the chat because Haviland of Gone with the Wind fame and George Hamilton of TV fame stars as Fabrizio. It's like actually a star-studded cast in this film, which is fascinating.
Okay,
do you think they shoot the scene where she gets kicked? Do you think that's like a flashback?
I don't think. I hope we should. You know what? For Patreon, we should all watch this movie. This would be a great time for all three of us.
It has like
the
7
tweets
stars.
that we are
It's
going to
not bad.
get saying, I just want the reactions of.
Well, if you also go on Patreon, you'll get our reaction to the Colleen Ballinger apology. Actually true. That is actually the truth. If you're on Patreon, you will see that. But I did most of the reviews for that film were just kind of like, why would they make a musical out of this? Or hey, wouldn't it be great if they made a musical out of this? And I'm like, that's not helpful for what I'm doing here.
Funny.
No, I will say it 100% makes sense why they made a musical out of this. Like on paper, that book, like that, someone just grasping at like, a well-sold novella, picking this up as a story, it absolutely writes itself as a musical. Like Adam Guettel, Craig Lucas, they were smart up. I just think that if they were originating this story, if it came out of the corners of their mind, I think that you would have seen in and out of town and workshops on Broadway and whatnot, that piece of that puzzle doesn't work. I would hope they would, right? But you can't divorce yourself from that integral part of the story if you're finally presenting it on stage, because the people that probably gave you the rights to that don't allow you to make that big of an adjustment unless it's To Kill a Mockingbird. And unless, you're out here just taking a plot and changing it up and changing the whole
Wait
thing.
a second. Hold up.
What did they do?
Wait,
to Kill
I
a
need to know
Mockingbird?
this. I literally did no looking into the To Kill a Mockingbird show. What did Sorkin do?
I mean, it was vastly rewritten from the book, so much so that there was a lawsuit with Harper Lee on her deathbed, and that show was not licensed until she died. That's why it took so long. She did not give her consent to the story that they were writing based on her book because it was so different. And then that's why it got produced after she died.
What was so different about it? Like,
It was all from the perspective of Atticus and not Scout.
Oh.
It was all of it. You know whose story needs to be told? An adult white man.
I've been saying this for years.
Considering Harper Lee's own interpretation of Atticus in To Go Set a Watchman, or where he is very much a racist man who is much more real to like how most people would actually probably be from that time.
Yeah. It's not so much a white savior, and I think that the reason that it's written in the way that it is because that is how a child would see her father. It is not, in my opinion, and I'm sure that there are others, so I'm not, discrediting any of them, because mine's from, my own perspective. It 100% makes sense that she's like, my dad's doing everything right. Like, he's perfect. He is saving the people of this town. He is the most understanding and like teaches me about race. And like, obviously, like getting older, you're like, hold on, this is a fully fledged human being. And like, maybe people aren't all one. And even people that you perceive to be non-racist, like still have unconscious bias. Like, what are you talking about?
It's almost fitting that they changed the perspective because now it's us being told that he's perfect.
He did a great thing, and I did do this great thing. Look at me.
We can't reconcile with the fact that he might have been flawed.
I'm such a good father.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta look at these fucking reviews now. We were actually having a decent conversation. Now we gotta go back to our fucking podcast bullshittery.
Fucking letterboxed garbage. What did you dig out of the fucking cesspit this time, Jess?
Grace, why don't you go first?
With what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read you a real life letterbox review, and you have to tell me whether.
I was like, am I
This guy-
conjuring these?
I thought the same thing. I'm like, what do you mean you just go
Like,
first?
am I
What do
like
you?
wicked? Like, what is it? Go off.
Okay.
All right, stick your hand in the septic tank. See what you pull out.
Every day, I thank God someone who's not Matthew Morrison is playing Fabrizio here.
Is this a true or false?
It is 1 star, 5 star.
Oh my God. 3 stars. 1 star.
It can only be one of the two.
It gotta be one of the two. It's nothing in between. It's either 1 or 5.
So it's one. You say
I
one?
say 1.
It was a 5 star. They were very happy Matthew Morrison was not present.
Oh, okay, intense.
All right, Andrew, you're next. Clara Johnson, marry me! I tried to enunciate the capitalizations.
Yeah. This is a person who's very interested in. I'm gonna go 5 because usually people that get this passionate about their waifus,
That is correct. All right, Grace, next one. Very charming, heart
Star emoji. 5 stars.
the 1 star. I was very confused by
Is that someone just being sassy and saying something like,
who knows? You never know with these.
Star emoji.
It's like the little shooting
the
star.
2 stars or the shooting
No.
star?
The shooting star.
Oh, if you had said shooting star, I would have said 1.
Why?
Because the shooting star is kind of like bullshit.
Oh, okay. I'm learning how to tweet.
The emoji ecosystem, apparently.
You watched the Emoji Movie 3 times? Obviously not.
I've never seen it.
I did.
I did see Emoji Land, yeah. Doesn't make an
Toronto
appearance
for
as far as I know, though.
for its pro shot that might never get released. But I was in the audience when the. We'll see if it ever comes out. They did good. They were really gotten to tour instead of just doing one performance. Emoji Land's sad. All right. Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you make a whole musical out of this?
Well,
And Grace, the last one. Well done melodrama. It's a 1. And that
why'd you
wraps
give
up
Grace
the.
all the hard ones? What the heck?
Wow.
This was rigged. So rigged.
Oh my god. Andrew, anytime you lose, it's rigged against you. Anytime anyone else loses, it's rigged against them. There's no winning, is there?
Winning. Jess rigs all the games. It's like
Okay.
WWE.
That is my review of the Piazza. It's like WWE. And how about we go into a mid-show and then we talk about some of these songs? Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we got to you buy our shit, give us money. Andrew, tell them about Patreon.
Oh man, you go on Patreon, you give us money, and you can get extra content.
We're really
We got video episodes, we got commentary tracks, we got extra episodes, all sorts of nonsense.
literally every Grace episode we have like a little because just how it goes. Like our panty conversation about whether or not
We always do this. It's always so dirty, girl, guys.
the police noises behind her for that.
The sirens for the siren. Get me out of here.
I'm sorry. But yeah, Grace is always a joy. How we always go into the dirty territory with her. I think she gets like our scatological kind of bullshit humor and is like, yeah, I'll play in the pig pen with these.
Okay, our
Yes.
current patrons, I'm doing them as quick as I can.
Don't fuck it up.
God, there's getting to be so fucking many though. We've almost filled out the 3 columns.
We've had 4 columns before. We're in the red, man.
We're in the red. When did we have 4 columns? I don't remember that.
We've had 4 columns.
I do not remember that. Okay. Melissa Goldman, Danielle Rennick, Pete, Ewan Cassidy, Brent Black, Daniel Stacy Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Mary Lou Choquette, John Vanals, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Kyle Summers, Janae C, Scoot in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Liz Lim, Nothing is Certain Except Beth and Texas Thespian, Jessica T, Mitchell Young, Katie McDonough, Chris Marcotte, Kiji Marie Anastasio, Leela, RJ Noriga, Bjorn Hermans, Toriana Frazier, Sammy the Adequate at Mount Jacobson, Leanna Morton, Kaylee Blazier, Cinemageddon Reviews, Villainous Miss, Sophina L.E., The Omega Geek, Paige Pearson, Maddie Wargle, Eliza Erdman, Anna Loskatova, Sarah Den Blaker, Evan Ball, Zachary Torres, Rora Marasso, Mara Forloin, Captain Rod Taskic, Lisa L., Nobody, Renee Thomas, Nick RO10, Puffy Boy, Summer, Julia Hardy, Jay Kusia, Jay Kusia, Caitlin Bridgman, Sydney Hicks, and Anna Bell.
These motherfuckers give us money! Come join them and give us money too. Yeah, that's it. Also, a reminder from our patron, high tier patron, Monica Thoreau, please get your annual eye exam and take care of your eyes. They're an optometrist and would love it if you did that to yourselves. It's so crazy that we have actual doctors giving us money, and we're adding nothing positive to society. Speaking of that, let's get back to the show already in progress. I really like the opening song, Statues and Stories. It sets up every one of our two leads very, very beautifully and very, very economically. We know very much about them by the end of this song, and it sets up Florence as a location. It's like a character. It's like a Nora and Ephron film where New York is a character.
What did I do? Mother, what happened here? Well, let's see. On a central square in the city of the sun rose a palace. It was high and handsome, gleaming like the crown of a king. Where would that be? Where is that? In the tower, a warning bell would ring. What kind of warning? For a fire or river overflowing. Firenze, on a central square, the beginning of a kingdom republic. Was there a king? Was there a queen? There were painters, noblemen of logic and art. Firenze, Leonardo, Michelangelo, the start. That's a completely naked statue. 'Twas a dawning day unfurling from the heart.
But what do you think of this song, Grace?
I think it's pretty, and I think that I will say this: getting to see it live, like with like the orchestra, it felt like I haven't heard an overture in a minute. Like it was just gorgeous. I think it sets it up beautifully. Like, this show nailed its original score. They won a Tony, right? There's a reason for it. They also won orchestrations. So it's no surprise to me that like the tone of the show is set with that opener. And it's very evident the world to kind of visit, which is the 1960s in Italy, right?
50s, but yes.
50s. Listen, the skirts are big. But yeah, they won costumes too. But yeah, you can tell that they understood, not trying to set this in a modern musical sense, and that we're kind of transported back into that time. But it's no surprise to us, Adam Guettel, mother, Mary Rogers, like grandfather, Richard, like it's kind of in the lineage. So it feels a little like perfect. But yeah, it makes sense. I love it.
I love it. I also love like the first lines being like, "What happened here?" Like every time that pops up on my shuffle, I'm like, "Well, I'm on for a ride for a bit." Yeah, I love this, but I think the moment that I realized I was really gonna enjoy this show is Il Mondo Era Viotto, where I'm like, no subtitles. You're just gonna expect me to know this story based on how y'all are interacting.
Miss anything. By not speaking Italian, you don't miss anything. It's also because it's a Romance language, which is how most of our language is like, delegated, right? So there's never an opportunity. Like sometimes I'm such an asshat. I was sitting there and sometimes they would say something and I would be like, that sounds like Spanish. And it's like, well, no shit, Grace. It's all together.
Spanish, yeah.
Non sapevo di sentirmi solo, privo del senso della vita. Era così clara, mia luce, il mio cor, l'essenza che mi mancava, sei tu, la tua luce in onda.
And it's just such a beautiful number. What did you think, Andrew? Because I throw you into these blind.
I'm for the foreign language songs. I listen to a lot of songs that aren't in English, and I love that shit.
You've like basically
I don't know. There's something about it when you can't understand it. It almost makes it sound like you can focus more on the melody and just the music of it. I don't know.
And you've liked every like foreign musical we've done, more or less, except for
the most
Dracula.
part, yeah.
You tend to like the Euro musicals.
I do.
Can I tell you a haunting fact that is not based in science? There is a direct correlation for a lot of people who do not identify as musical theater lovers, like initially, with foreign films and musicals. There's something about it that clicks in more authentically. So it doesn't surprise me that that is something that you have enjoyed kind of across the board, because you don't identify initially as a person who is just like, I love musical theater, all of it. you know, I just think that that's interesting that it's also present here as well.
There you go. I'm a statistic now.
Yeah,
All
welcome,
you are is
Andrew.
a number.
And also, I still am harping on this. It's some of the most impressive lighting of a set I've ever seen.
They
Like
sure
even in
won.
just that pro shot, I'm just watching the lights go by slowly on the ground. I'm like, ooh, that's nice. That's real nice. It looks like a sky.
Well, it's also
And-
like so much of where they are in the
Yes.
text of the show are iconic places that you can't fuck up. Like you, if you're going to say we're outside of blank in Rome, or you're outside of like Michelangelo's, like you can't fib it because people know what it looks like and they know what the sun feels like when you're there. Like there's all that warm yellow tone. It's also present in the key art. They really nailed all of the things that, like, without, throwing lemons onto the plate, of what Italy is supposed to feel like. I mean, listen, hell, right under the Tuscan sun, the musical, Adam Guettel, I'm saying it now. But yeah, it's clear that the warmth is there musically, tonally, through the light, and through the set design as well.
Grace, are there any specific songs in like Act 1 that you really think you felt connected to, or things that love this one?
Dividing Day is
Mhm.
probably the standout for me. I think that's when we finally understand Margaret and where she's coming from.
Dashing as the day we met, only there is something I don't recognize, though I cannot name it yet. I know it. Beautiful is what you, only somehow wearing a frightening disguise. I can see the winter in your eyes now, telling me thank you. We're done here, not much to say. We are together, but I have had dividing day. So when was this day?
And plot-wise, remind us what's going on in this scene.
Oh no, I'm gonna have to do homework right now.
You don't have to. We can just move on past.
No, I want to. This is when she's kind of like back in her hotel room, and Margaret
Mhm.
has kind of like just had that phone call where we get to know like her dynamic with her husband, and she's all alone. And like in a sense, like her husband's very busy and he's doing business, and like she is kind of single parenting herself for the past I mean, think about when this happens. Let's say Clara is 10 or 12, it doesn't matter. That's
16.
almost 15 years that she's still parenting her child in a way that she's still 10 years old. And I think you start to understand, like, she's incredibly lonely as an adult woman. She's caring for her child in a way that, like, no parent is equipped to. That's when you're starting to kind of, like, contextualize yourself within her world and like, how she is trying to, like, find herself in her marriage and finding herself as a mother. And how that's literally dividing her personalities in her day-to-day life.
I love this song as well. I feel like Fable overshadows it a lot as far as most people thinking about Margaret in this musical. Because anyone that's quoting Margaret in this musical, they're thinking of Fable. And they're pulling that one. Because it is the 11 o'clock, I'd even call it 12 o'clock number at that point. It's what's sending us off, and it is like her basically saying... It's the direct reaction to Dividing Day of saying, I now understand what love is and all this. And I think they go hand in hand, but I feel like Fable tends to overshadow how good that song is.
And then, like, literally, and you're starting to get all the bangers, right? Like, we've set up all the preamble, right? You get Dividing Day, and you're like, okay, this is her. And then they do Say It Somehow, and you're like,
Yes.
are we about to fuck? Like it's
And
they are. I will say this was interesting. I know that in the Broadway production, it's very evident that like Margaret goes to the door and kind of like catches them.
yeah.
It's very clear in the set that it's like a surprise to the audience.
And you
like that this
gasp and then you go to intermission.
100%. At Encores, there's a set, but kind of hardly. And so you just kind of see Margaret wandering around and then making her way back to their bedroom. And you're kind of like, what could have like called that? Like, so Andrew, the title song for The Light in the Piazza is a song also in Act 2 called Light in the Piazza. And get this, the horse girl, she sings it.
It's up, it's pouring out, it's flying through the air, Who knows what you call it, but it's there, it is there. I see it, all I want is tearing from inside. I see it,
I don't know. I like this. I
Very
don't have a ton
pretty.
to say about it. All the songs in this are very pretty. It has kind of this operatic kind of feel to it, the whole thing. And I just kind of like how they wrote the music, but I don't have any like strong feelings on.
What exactly
Any
is a
one particular
piazza,
song?
though? Is my
That's
question.
what I'm wondering a little bit. Is it like a pizza with an extra A or?
Piazza?
Yeah, what is that? What is up? Is it something you physically see?
Yeah,
Is it?
it's a structure. Hold please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like if you think about the whole like as a whole piece, right? The mother eventually like is revealing that like she is missing love from her life. Like she literally tells her husband on the phone, like, well, we're not like we've grown apart and we're not really in that stuff. And she's like, at the end of the day, she wants her daughter, which is why she is okay with her getting married in her state, because she's like, you have found love. Like you have some light beckoning you moment. Like go towards it. Don't like take a step back and question yourself. Like life is short and life can take turns and you might, you know what I mean? So I think that that's really the whole kind of like overarching thesis of being like, and her repeating over and over, it is there, I think is how they're like hammering that home.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty. Like you the weak metaphors are built up on beautiful, beautiful music and a gorgeous vocalist.
It's not a weak metaphor, Jess.
It means there's love in my heart. I'm on Genius Lyrics. It's telling me Adam Guettel's own notes.
Yeah, well, love in your heart is a common metaphor, so it's fine.
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't disagree. I guess the last one we really got to talk about is Fable, don't we?
You can look in the forest for a secret field, for a golden arrow, for a prince here, for a fable of love that will last forever. You can look in the ruins for a wishing well, for a magic apple, for a chariot table of love that will carry you to a moon on a hill, to a hidden stream, a lagoon and a red horizon set away from time forever, to a valley beyond the settings where water shines run, where there's a man who looks for you.
We kind of already talked about it, but it is like one of the best musical theater songs ever written. I say that without exaggeration. It is one of the best female songs for females on Broadway I've ever heard, especially older females having a look back. Like, truly, like, there's nothing to compare to this, unless I'm missing out anyone in my head, but I love this song. It's the one I listen to the most, and the one I return to when I think, like, it's the first song that comes into my head when I think of this show. And give it to any vocalist, they can play it 5 different ways. It is a very different playable song, and I don't know, I'm always impressed by it. And it makes me think this show is incredible. This show is amazing, even though I think I get a little tricked at the end.
What's
what
the
are your
trick
thoughts?
for you?
The trick is, like, I enjoy the parts of this. I don't think I enjoy the whole of it. I love
Of the song or of the whole show?
of the whole show.
But the song you really like.
The song I really like, and it leaves me like, oh my god, that was such a good show. That was an incredible show.
It's smart to close with one of the best songs.
It is. It really, really
And
is.
there's nowhere else to go.
No.
Like, what else do we need to see? There's not really a climax except for this moment of her accepting that, like, while her daughter, like, she will never be able to, quote, fix what she believes she can possibly fix by existing in her daughter's life. It is unfixable. So
Right.
what she can give her daughter is freedom. So her accepting that moment, and the way that the whole story is set up with stories and statues and ending with fables, it's a literal beginning and middle and an end to a story.
I love that
Yeah.
so much. So great.
They-
I'm I'm so sorry, but yeah, Fable is the best, and I love it so much. And that is basically all we have to say about Light in the Piazza, I believe. I'm so glad Grace was here, because I felt so... I'm not going to lie, this show daunts me a lot, which is part of the reason why it took so long. I know I wanted someone that had a lot of thoughts, a lot of taste, and great taste, and we know when it comes to that, it's Grace Aki. So Grace, please promote all the wonderful things you do around the internet so everyone can find it.
You can follow me on all social media platforms for the time being at It's Grace Aki. Also follow along. I'm sure that you all will be there, but I think all of us are going to be at Broadway Con this year.
Not us. Not this time.
Nor. Okay, well, I will be there.
Go see Grace. Go see Grace. She's great.
But yeah, you can with anything if you care to. On all my projects, I've got a solo show that I just did a reading of, and I can't wait to bring it back again. You all have been so incredibly kind and supportive. If you want to hear more about To Free a Mockingbird, you can go listen to a Musicals with Cheese episode specifically dedicated to it, which I am eternally grateful for. Parade of kindness, so I don't mind you listening to it because it's so kind. But yeah, so To Free a Mock, follow me on a Sunday as my podcast through Broadway Podcast Network. I'm also, if you ever care to every single day, we present it to you on Today on Broadway, another podcast that is a show that can kind of contextualize all of the Broadway news happening. If you don't have time to listen to it, watch your Twitter feed and what have you, we bring it to you in like 20 minutes every single day. So that's what you missed on Glee. And thank you all so much for having me again.
I hate to derail, but we forgot to give our cheese rating.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll
Don't
get
worry.
to
I haven't
the
forgot. I do want to say your Etsy shop.
Yes, you're so kind. In fact, actually, yesterday I was standing outside of New York, and some kind patron came up to me and was like, "Are you Grace?" And I said, "Yes." And they were like, "I get your art on Etsy." And I was like, that is the coolest thing you could have ever said to me. I do have an Etsy store where I do a lot of like ink and watercolor originals based on TV, film, and some original works called Grace Aki Made It. You can also find that through my Instagram as well, at Grace Count as well. So yeah.
Yep. And now, as Andrew 100% pointed out that I had forgotten, but I played off like nothing happened, what is our overall thoughts on Light in the Piazza and our cheese?
Yeah, I mean, other than the one weird story thing that I probably would have changed, I mean, everything else is just pretty gold. And the music is really solid throughout. It's a good show. I mean, I'm glad that they did that encores thing. That sounded like it was a great thing for them to do. So I don't know if it will ever come back, but there's always this pro shot, so you can go check that out.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been officially released legally, but I'm glad I have it.
Well, if you can find it, which you can, yo ho, you know? That's what I have to say.
Yeah.
As far as a cheese rating, I mean, the list of Italian cheeses is eternal. So long. There's so many different cheeses that you can give it. I'm trying to pick a fun one, but I just gotta pick one here. I'm gonna pick one that's Italian sounding, like hard to pronounce. So I'm gonna butcher it. How about
Bibbidi bobbidi.
Vizina? That sounds like a good one.
I see no reason why it isn't. Grace, what about you? Your overall thoughts and your cheese rating?
I'm going to give this. Here's the thing. I think it's a beautiful piece. And I also think it's, well, like I said earlier, it is a perfect encore show. It has some, like as a work, I think some holes, but I do believe that it is an outstanding score, an outstanding piece of art that I hope we can continue to enjoy for years to come. So I do enjoy it. And I would give this a cheese rating of a Parmesan crisp, meaning you don't exactly belong on the cheese board. You are cheese and you do have holes. And you know what? You're tasty as hell.
Love it. Thought out, brilliant. Mine is so lazy. I enjoy this show, but I feel like every time I kind of notice more and more of the faults in its construction and writing, and I return to specific aspects of it rather than the whole thing when I do return to it. I would love to see it live sooner rather than later. I'm hoping that there will be some great community theater productions, because I feel like this isn't done in local theater very often, and it is like a fantastic
score.
Yeah, but it's, I know, but I'm thinking like even the bigger like Flint Rep took that. I'm surprised they don't do it more often just to show off their orchestra, or like universities that have the big orchestras.
Listen, the Vivian Beaumont, because Camelot has decided to close early, is now open.
Yeah.
Maybe from New York City Center will transfer to its old home for a few months, a few weeks. Who's to say?
A strict limited engagement. Ben Platt playing Fabrizio. All right. But my cheese rating is Parmesan cheese on a Fabrizio platter kit. Basically it's this guy named Fabrizio makes cheese platter kits, and he's gonna be cutting some cheese trays for me. Yeah, that's
Don't
my
fall
justification.
in love with him, okay?
Don't tell me what to do, Mom. I can do what I want. He's the light in my piazza.
Jess, you're a very special boy, so.
No. Fabrizio. Okay, yes, I can. And that's the musical there. All right, a wonderful time. I'm so grateful for all of you. I hope you had fun, Grace.
Always something. Y'all.
You don't have to lie. You just brought out your inner baby Annette there. Daddy kills people.
Baby Annette.
I'm disgusted with how often I return. You know who else makes me feel disgusted, though?
All of our patrons?
All of our wonderful patrons. Thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, and maybe something else at Musicals with Cheese. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musical Cheese, Instagram Musical Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. Email us at musicaltheaterlist@gmail.com. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio and Grace. Every time for Juliet, I ask for a little ASMR, and you did such a great time, a great one last time. So why don't you give her a little ASMR
What are we saying for Juliet?
What I don't know. Sincerely, when my daughter was 12 years old.
Yeah, that's a good one. Say that.
I've come too far in life to be canceled in this moment. Don't you
All right,
dare.
Jess, you have to
Miranda
say
sings it. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Fabrizio.
Beautiful. This show is edited by Andrew DeWolf, and he's doing a fantastic job. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having all of us on the platform, and for not kicking us off for shit about Miranda Sings. Gotta see Patreon for that, bitches. All right, anything else we have left to say before we wrap this all up?
Stay away from horses.
Yeah, and Italian men.
Mostly horses, though. I mean, just
They
careful.
will both kick you in the head.
She got kicked in the
you
head,
say so.
and we got kicked in the heart.
Oh.
And that is all from us at Musicals with Cheese. We'll see you next week. Anytime I think about Fable, I just go, if you find the world in the wide, wide world.